On this episode, we chat with Hassan Ghiassi about his unique social meetup group, Aristotle's Cafe.
So if you're interested in meeting people in a new and dynamic setting, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok podcast.
Sawadee krap, y'all, and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who followed a friend to Thailand in 2001 and once ordered 2,000 baht worth of Chiang Rai coffee beans to keep me supplied at work for the rest of the year, the day before my office decided to offer free coffee for everyone. True story.
Classic. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract almost 19 years ago. And I fell in love with the Thai why, and I've never figured it out. So I'm still here working on it.
It's an ongoing process.
It is. Anyway, before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. For more info on how you can become a patron, just head to the support page on bangkokpodcast.com. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about current events in Thailand and whatever else comes into our minds. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about Greg's kids' first day at school, my first week teaching a new crop of freshmen at my university, our ongoing attempts at understanding the why, the traditional Thai greeting or bow, and the differences and similarities it has with the Western handshake. And we also talked about some awesome 80s movies, which are important as well.
I just still can't believe you've never seen The Goonies.
I haven't. Neither have I seen the Gremlins or the Goonies. Either one. I don't even know the difference. That's how bad it is. I don't know the difference between the Goonies and the Gremlins. They both begin with G. It's just like the G movies.
Right. I watched this movie about these kids finding pirate treasure, and it was just these monsters running around scaring people. I got really confused.
Goonies, Gremlins. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know.
All right. Well, on this episode, we are joined by Hassan Ghiassi, who is the local facilitator of a group called Aristotle's Cafe. And one of the cool things about living in Bangkok is the sheer diversity of the people here from all backgrounds and walks of life. And one of the best way to meet these people is through networking groups. Now, most of these groups are purely social, but some of them offer a little bit more, and Aristotle's Cafe is one of them. Billed as a chance for diverse groups of strangers to come together and meet face-to-face to discuss, debate, and ponder a wide range of topics. It's a safe place to share ideas and opinions, ask questions, and learn through conversation and free expression. So it's not only a great way to meet new people in Bangkok, but it's also a great way to understand the fabric of Bangkok's Thai and expat communities in more detail. So I sat down with Hassan at a shopping mall and had some coffee and some sodas. And a really nice guy. We had a very cool conversation. So here is me talking to Hassan Ghiassi from Aristotle's Cafe. All right, well, we are very happy to have on the show with us a gentleman by the name of Hassan Ghiassi. And he and I have something in common in that we both run, I used to run, you currently run, one of these things in Bangkok that make it such an interesting city, and that is one of these groups where people come together to meet / discuss / debate / experience each other, the city, culture, whatever. And Hassan is the creator and head dude at Aristotle's Cafe.
That's right, yeah.
We're going to talk about that. Welcome to the Bangkok podcast, Hassan.
Thanks so much, Greg. Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and also interested to know what kind of questions you have for me, because it seems like you're in touch with a diverse group of people as I am each and every week. And so I'm sure that you have also a wealth of knowledge being and living here for as long as you have.
Well, it depends who you talk to, I think. But so we're sitting here in a little cafe in the corner of the ground floor of a big shopping mall and drinking coffees and sodas. So apologies if you hear us drinking. Some listeners get really upset with that, you know.
Oh yeah, well, I'll be careful. I'll be careful then.
Try not to chew your ice on the on the podcast. But I wanted, you contacted me and sort of broached the topic of talking about this, and I think it's a really good one because Bangkok is such an interesting and diverse city for expats, and like we were just talking about before we started recording, when I first got here in 2001, none of these groups like Meetup or Facebook or Twitter, anything like that, none of these ways to connect existed. But there's a lot of them now, and I think they're really, really cool. And you run Aristotle's Cafe, and the wording on the website says, and I have it here, I'll quote, "We create spaces where strangers put their phones down and talk to each other, building understanding and respect by having important conversations." And that's really cool. But the interesting thing about Aristotle's Cafe is that it's, from what I understand it, a bunch of people come around, Thais and foreigners, and they sit together and then they pose questions that everyone then discusses. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. So also, too, just to clarify, Aristotle's Cafe is a format. A lot of people think it's actually a cafe. We
Right.
create it so it's mobile. It can be in any location or space. And what happens is, you're right, foreigners and Thai people come together and write down questions, any questions that they want. And then everyone votes on which one to start with. So each week we get something totally different, but also a question that is very fitting and appropriate to kind of the feeling or sense of that time or that week or that month. And so you really can put your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the minds of the people in the city.
Right. Now, you said that it was a really interesting experience for you, like a learning experience for you as the moderator, as the organizer, because it gave you a lot of insight into Thai people and Thai culture. And what struck me as interesting is that my take on things is that Thai people are not really comfortable, as a general rule, with getting up in front of strangers and sharing information or asking questions or debating. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to talk about, because what's been your experience when you try to introduce this debate format into Thai culture, which is traditionally sort of resistant to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a wonderful question. And then I'm American, so normally Americans don't have people
Can't shut
thinking,
you up.
Yeah, well, Americans don't have the stereotypical idea that we're shy to talk, right? So in general, Americans are really talkative in these sessions, but I would say we draw a certain crowd, a certain demographic from the Thai culture as well. People that are interested in kind of outside ideas and speaking up. They might have had exposure to this kind of thinking. Maybe they traveled. And so the Thai people that come to our sessions are pretty vocal and also really ready to speak. In a lot of ways, I would say we have two sessions, English and Thai.
Oh.
Like today we're going to have an English session and a Thai session, which is even more interesting. So our very first Thai session here in Bangkok was led by a Thai facilitator that was trained. We had almost 200 interested people.
Wow.
And we had to deny many of them because we can only fit about 18. 18 is like bursting. That's too many people for just a 1 hour talk. And the session started with everyone voted on the question, how does religion affect your life? And in Thai, right? They're talking in Thai.
Holy moly. No light and easy questions there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like if you believed before that Thai people aren't ready to argue in public, you should experience that, because they were nonstop. It's full on. Like no one held back. Actually, the facilitator had to really even moderate in a way that, make sure people get the chance to take turns and politely speak with each other and things like that. And I think it's less about being shy to speak up necessarily, as once you create a safe space for people, I think no matter what culture you're from, people are ready to really share and open up. They're waiting for that. They're ready for that.
Right. Now, my experience I used to run a group called Bangkok Scientific Co-Run. I was one of 6 people that ran it. And it was really interesting. Every month we met and talked about had someone talk about a different aspect of science, whether it was climate change or astronomy or history or linguistics or whatever. And one of the sort of always unpredictable things for every episode was that there's always someone there who sees it as a platform for them to start talking.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of, I'll be honest, we had a lot of weirdos say it, and it was really difficult to get them to shut up and be like, hey, you're one of a group here. Sit down, be quiet, and let other people talk. Is that something, and to be honest, almost all of them were always foreigners.
Yeah.
The Thais that attended were always very polite. But what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I think, it's funny. I have had because I've done this for 14 years, and I did it in the U.S., I've done it in Germany, I've done it in many different countries. And actually in the U.S., we always open up for everybody. But in the U.S., we would have much more homeless people. Like homeless people would come and join us, or children, a big diversity in age. In the U.S., I find that people really just want to be heard. And so they would come, and those people that you'd be worried about actually would be pretty respectful and pretty aware of not overpowering. I think here sometimes what happens, and this is kind of a mixed bag, when we advertised on meetup.com, we got really extreme people coming on meetup.com.
Yeah, that's a very good word to use.
And so we took it off of that platform and do it exclusively on Facebook and word of mouth now.
Okay.
And we had people sign up on Google Forms. But when people come in now, I would say the ones that are really kind of hard to handle are typically older expats that might have been living in a community that is only Thai speaking or mainly Thai speaking. People that are really hungry just to like let it out, like that they've been holding this thing inside for so long, and they just are excited to be around English speakers.
Right.
And normally trained facilitators know how to deal with that. But typically people, when they come the first time, it'll kind of be like the moment where they go a little bit overboard, and then we have weekly sessions. So I think it's a nice outlet for people. They mellow out. They like realize it's also a format that lets people realize how to interact appropriately and correctly in a group like that. So people kind of self-correct and also become more self-aware through the process of what we do.
Interesting. Yeah. What insights have you gotten into Bangkok, into the expat community here, into Thai culture? As someone who does this every week, like, what have you noticed? Are there any trends? Are there any surprises?
Yeah, I think one of the funnier things that came up is it correct that when is it okay to cut in line? Like to not queue, I mean, universally, like people need to queue.
Yeah.
You have to wait on the BTS. You have to be polite. And so this is a question that came up. And then there was a lot of expats that were really frustrated about getting cut in front of by like older gentlemen or older ladies on the BTS or wherever it might be. And so it was just really funny to sit and see how, local Thai people and also these expats kind of come together on that conversation. And a big part of that has to do with just a culture clash. Like for example, it's appropriate to queue, but what if the person's older and doesn't have the energy to stay standing for long enough?
Interesting.
Right? Or things like that. And then it's really nice to see these two sides meet and kind of, realize it's not because people are rude. Actually, it's because they're being polite in a way. It's not as you expected, right? And so there's these really nice moments where assumptions are uncovered in these really friendly paths,
Maybe I can learn something from that, because I I hate people who cut in line, and I always, if someone cuts in line in front of me, like I'll use my like super strong pointy finger and tap them on the shoulder really hard.
Yeah,
like I don't stand for that. But
I kind of do the same,
yeah.
But another example is that I thought was the funniest moment. One of the funnier moments in the discussion, or that happens a lot, is that some people, they just don't know anything about Buddhist culture, and they lived here years and years, and they just have no idea. And so there's some moments that they can just literally ask, is this Buddhism or is this just Thai habits, or what is it? And then these conversations happen. And then also too, we had a expat that came that had lived in Thailand for maybe 15 years, and he was mentioning how nice it is that Thailand is a monoculture, that everyone's the same. So when you're on the BTS, everyone's extremely polite, everyone's the same culture, religion, race, all that. And in the circle, there was people that identify as Thai that said, well, I'm Indonesian, I'm Chinese, I'm Singaporean, but I'm Thai and I'm born here and I feel Thai, but we're not like homogenous, we're actually quite diverse.
Right.
And this guy who had been here for 15 years kind of had to deal with that, and then was able to ask questions around that and think about his own way of approaching that, and learn a little bit more about the culture that he's living in.
So there are a lot of these groups in Bangkok, and Aristotle's Cafe operates in several different countries, right?
Yes, yes.
Where?
So we're in Iceland, Myanmar, Mongolia, Australia, and Thailand.
Wow. Okay. Well, and what have you? Is there anything unique about the one in Bangkok that doesn't happen in the other ones?
In Bangkok, I think specifically because I'm here and because we have a really healthy community here, we're able to do it in Thai and English. We really make sure groups do mix and do get to talk to each other and have those moments. And then I think too, we just have a really healthy, friendly, welcoming environment, which is the same everywhere. Iceland is a little bit more towards youth empowerment and leadership skills and people that want to network a little bit more. In Bangkok, we really try to offer a space that is not about promotion, not about upsell to something else, not about some hook. It's really we just want people to come, talk, connect.
Right.
And this is the purity of what we started as, and it's continued that way. And I think that draws a lot of people to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do Thais who come to the English one, do they jump right in, or are they reluctant to get involved? Do you have to kind of draw them out a little bit?
Our demographic is pretty interesting. We have individuals that might work for radio. We have individuals that might own businesses, that might be entrepreneurs, that might be directors of certain aspects of a company. So we have some people that come that are Thai or expat are pretty motivated and are really strong leaders already. And then we also have Thai people that come, or also expats that they might not feel as comfortable with their English speaking abilities. So they might be a little bit more timid, but we always give everyone the chance to speak up, when they're ready. And I think, so it really varies. And I wouldn't say it's about necessarily Thai or expat. I think there's different personalities that come out in these sessions.
Okay. So you can't really delineate like you're Thai, you're expat. It's your, an extrovert, you're an introvert, you're a leader, you're a follower, you're a listener, whatever.
Absolutely. And we've seen so many different types of people that the nice thing, I think, is that it's difficult for me to answer the question that you asked in like a black or white way. I've seen so many different types of people come that, I've seen, for example, a person that might be uncomfortable speaking English, but they own a company and they actually are in charge of 100 people. So they might not speak up very much during the discussion, but afterwards they'll feel more free to have a deeper discussion, one-on-one or things like that. So it's always nice to see who comes.
That's a bit of a universal thing, though, right? I mean, Jerry Seinfeld's got that famous bit where he talks about how public speaking is the number one fear of people, like almost always.
Yeah.
Number two is death.
Yeah.
So he says that at a funeral, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these groups in Bangkok. You mentioned meetup.com, which is a big one. I would, in my experience, I think a lot of them are sort of more social and fun, but it sounds like Aristotle's Cafe is, you want people to get something out of it as well, like personal growth, networking, pique their curiosity a little bit or something like that. What would you say? Like, why would someone go to Aristotle's Cafe versus any of the other ones?
Oh man! All right,
bit of a trick question.
Okay, I don't know much about the other meetups because I'm so full on with running this. But I would say the people that come out, in general, they're looking for people that they can be friends with. They're looking to practice communication skills. They're looking to put their screens down and just talk to people face to face. I think it's just people are so forced to be behind screens and cut off a bit that they just want like an hour to go and just be with other individuals in a safe space that allows them to really be themselves. And we disagree. Like, also too, like, these conversations aren't only lovey-dovey and holding hands. Like, we also there's some pretty intense disagreements or arguments. Okay. But I think they just want that kind of humanity in that space to occur for them.
Right. That's a really interesting point because, of course, Thailand is famous as being one of the most socially aware in terms of social networking countries in the world. People are addicted to their phones, are addicted to social networks. So it's interesting now that almost this alternative social structure has arisen that forces people, that provides people a way to escape from this, jail of their phone and talk to people. Whereas, like when you and I were growing up, that was what you did.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean, people also we walk people through a certain ritual in terms of how they are going to connect on that session, right? How they're going to connect in that moment. And I think that also breaks down a lot of the hesitation or anxiety that they might have. So I think that's also something that they're looking for. They might not know if they're just on their own, they might feel a lot of anxiety if they're just going to go say hello to somebody. But, from kind of start to finish, from when they come in, we're introducing them to each other. And then we have a format that they can easily follow and go through.
Okay. So it's there's a rigid, not a rigid, but a set structure.
Yeah,
there's
it's like
ABC and
like a friendly, understandable method to follow that gets them eased into it and kind of comfortable.
Oh, cool. And you hold these ones every week, Aristotle's Cafe?
Every single week. We do it every Tuesday, and we're looking to kind of expand too in different areas and different places in the city. Right now it's in RE, but we're continuously growing, and even like in Siam, we might be opening up soon in the future.
Well, I know you've got to get out of here. You've got to go and lead a session tonight, right?
That's right. Yeah. So tonight we have English and Thai.
What's going on tonight? Give me an example of what your thing is tonight.
Well, so tonight we have what we regularly do. I think one of the funnier things is that people have a real hard time with the fact that we don't have set topics beforehand. But there's a real beauty in that, because what happens is, for example, tonight people are all going to write down questions, and during the time that there's a lot of elections happening, well, there's a lot of political questions that came out that people want to vote on and talk about during that time.
Right.
And same thing that might happen during like Valentine's Day, questions about love come out a lot.
Oh, interesting.
And so you're kind of, it's funny because as opposed to choosing a set topic, today's going to be like every other Aristotle's Cafe, which is a complete surprise that is centered to the people that come. And that is a unique experience for everyone, no matter if they've come 100 times or if this is their first time. They'll never experience this before or after.
Nice. I used to do improv comedy, and it was a bit like that. You never knew what was going to happen. You show through the door, and you're like, this is going to be a totally new experience. You know, no spoilers. This is possible because there's nothing to spoil. Well, that's really cool. So where can people find you online?
They can go to aristotelscafe.com. So aristotelscafe.com. And then also too, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and if anyone would like to join our group, we do have weekly sessions. They can reach out to me. They can email me at info@aristotelscafe.com.
Got it.
Which should be easy, and then we can kind of go from there. Also too, if anyone has any spaces that they'd like to host or like to welcome us into their space, then we're also more than happy to create special sessions for them.
Right on. No, that's cool. That's a cool idea. Well, it's great, man. It's good to talk to you, and I'm glad that you're doing something interesting. Like I said, a lot of these groups are just purely social and just exploratory and just fun, blah, blah, blah. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But it's cool that Aristotle's Cafe, and maybe there's a few other similar groups, are maybe providing a bit more depth, a bit more of a reflection of the people who are there and the topics that are happening around them that particular time. So, yeah, man, that's cool. We will definitely come down and check it out sometime. And all the best as you go forward.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks
Cool.
so much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say this. I love Bangkok subcultures. I love these groups that kind of do their own thing or different things. We've talked about some of them on the podcast before. Like, I'm really into the film club on Soy 22. I really like going to pub quizzes. But this, Aristotle's Cafe, is something that I've never been to. And I actually do teach some philosophy classes. And I'm actually a big fan of Aristotle. So this is right up my alley. I really feel like it's something I should go to.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Hassan has given us a standing invitation to show up whenever we'd like to, so it would be cool to go and sit down. I just hope they decide to talk about something that I can understand or have an opinion on. If they say, like, today we're talking about this, and I'm like, oh, God, I don't know anything about that. It's like back in high school again. Don't call my name.
Trust me, as someone who teaches philosophy, it's pretty easy to fake your way through it.
Cool. Yeah, we should check it out one time.
I'm in. I really want to go and check it out.
We will one day. So Hassan, thanks for coming on the show, man. It was really cool to meet you, and hopefully we'll see you at an Aristotle's Cafe event pretty soon. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us surprises the other with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as just part of the crazy tapestry of Bangkok. And this week, it is your turn, my favorite co-host.
Your favorite current co-host. Of all the co-hosts you currently have, I'm your favorite.
Yeah, of all the season 3 co-hosts, I like you the best.
Wow, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked on the podcast a fair amount about taxis and taxi culture. And listeners, if you haven't kept up with our debate, I would say, would you agree? I think I'm probably more favorable toward taxi drivers than you are.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Because I ride taxis a lot, and I always tell people that I give Thai taxi drivers overall a grade of a B. So I've got issues, I've got problems, but I don't think they're bad. And I know you've got more issues than I do.
The only way I would give them a B is if it's the first letter of the word boy. I hate using taxis in Bangkok.
All right. Well, let me be a little more specific. So this is I'm going to pick a somewhat unusual but not totally unheard of taxi experience, and tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
So, Greg, what do you think about the taxi driver who asks you after the meter's running if he can stop and pee? And related to that, what do you think when sometimes they just pee on the side of the road? So sometimes you stop in a gas station and they get out and use a proper bathroom, but sometimes the guy stops and he just goes behind a wall or a bush or something. So anyway, what's your take on taxi drivers peeing while the meter's running?
Very interesting one, because this has happened a lot of times. Okay, so I get in a taxi, they turn on the meter, they start to go, and then after a few minutes they're like, do you mind if I stop to take a leak?
Yeah, in Thai they're like buat chi, like I've got to pee.
Yeah. I usually don't mind it because there's not much choice. I would say I've come to live with it, because 99% of the time it's like a minute, 60 seconds or 90 seconds, and they're back in the car and driving. So I get it. They're in a car all day. They're driving. They're drinking water. They at least they didn't turn me down, drive past me. So I can't pick up this guy. I got to go pee. And then I'm left on the side of the road going another stupid taxi, So at least he picked me up. So that already puts him in my good graces. So going to take a leak, I get it. It's not ideal, but I'll live with it.
All right. That's quite reasonable of you. I was thinking that this might throw you into a rage, but but actually my take is almost exactly as yours. I'm usually just so happy that they let me in the taxi that I don't really mind the delay. It's one of those things that when they ask to stop or pee and the meter's running, I kind of feel like in theory it's wrong. They shouldn't do that, because the meter's running, and why don't they just pee in between passengers? So I feel like it's kind of on principle, it's wrong, but like you, it doesn't actually really bother me too much. I'm just
right.
And, I want to have sympathy for these guys. I don't think they have an easy job. I don't think they make a lot of money, and they got to pee. When you got to go, you got to go. And, although it does feel, I really do prefer when they use a proper bathroom, because it is just kind of awkward, sitting there when they're peeing on the side of the road.
Right, the guy's got his wang out 3 feet from you. This is weird.
It is a little bit weird.
It's like riding on the back of a motorcycle and they bump up onto the sidewalk, and you're like, this is not proper, but I would much rather be doing this than sitting behind that bus, traffic.
Yeah, true that for sure.
Yeah, but going on the side of the road behind a bush or something like that. I mean, if you've got to go that bad, maybe you should sort of have better bladder control or better time management issues.
Right.
I don't know. So stopping in a bathroom, don't mind it. Stopping on the side of the road, I mind it a little bit more, but I think I'll live with it as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna live with for sure. Dude, I'm gonna I don't know if I'm gonna win you over about Thai taxis, but I I will firmly defend my position that overall Thai taxi drivers are not that bad. Like I'm firmly committed that they're not horrible.
You know what we should do? We should do an experiment for like 1 or 2 months. We should enter our taxi driver data into an Excel sheet, and we should
Like
plot
rate.
various data points.
That's not a bad idea. I've taken a huge number of taxi rides over the years. I know we've talked about it. We haven't talked about it in a while. Like I feel like we did a run of talking about taxis a lot, maybe like 6 months ago or last year. We haven't talked about them in a while. I've taken a huge number of taxi rides, and I really feel like 9 out of 10 of them are basically fine.
I wouldn't agree with you, but I would say probably 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who really hate them. I mean, there's like it's a pretty common thing for especially foreigners to rage about.
Yeah.
But
I remember one of my friends on Twitter recently sent a tweet out against Grab and taxi drivers, and I remember his sign off on the tweet was about how he was going to buy his own car, and the last words in his tweet were "Sayonara, clowns."
Well, I'll tell you this, man. For me, like, you actually mentioned this on the bonus show. I have driven in Bangkok. I do drive in Bangkok, but rarely. Like, I don't drive a lot, and I really hate it. So anytime I have a problem with a taxi driver, I always think, like, this is better than driving.
Really?
I don't want to pay attention. I know you drive regularly, even though, of course, you still take taxis. But I don't know, man. I like just not having to worry about it. I like getting in the back and just zoning out and doing my thing, and let the driver worry about the traffic and the stress.
I would much rather be driving myself. If I'm going to be stuck in traffic anyway, I would much rather be in control of the radio and the air conditioning. And if I'm sitting there in traffic, I can still look at my phone. So it's all good. But not when you're driving, Ed. Safety first.
All right. The endless debate. Greg and Ed arguing about Thai taxis. The debate will never end.
That was a good one, though. I'll live with the quick bathroom break. Quick being the operative word.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our awesome patrons. As you know, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. If you want to learn more, just head to bangkokpodcast.com/support. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We are very polite, and if you write, we will answer.
Yep. You can also find each episode on YouTube, and you can also follow us online, where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners if you have any comments or questions. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter if you have even more comments or questions, where I am BKK Greg. So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week.
See you next week.
Well, howdy there, y'all, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen.
Wait, you're not going to say Sawadee Krap? That's like your line.
Oh, dude, you wrecked my flavor. I know, but I'm trying to dance it up a bit.
Really? But I mean, that's Sawadee is like that's like your trademark. Like you kind of have a good Thai accent for the Sawadee. I think you should say Sawadee, and then you can roll with your cowboy thing or whatever the hell you were doing. How y'all doing? Sawadee Krap.
All right. My inner redneck is coming out. All right. Just to please you.